Hello everybody, I hope you're having a beautiful day. Now oftentimes in these videos you hear me talking about Noah, Aaron, and then Samuel leading to a plethora of problems which led to priests and false prophets. So if you really break down this Bible or whatever, and you pay attention to the end, you'll have 8 important figures or whatever. Now if you pay attention, Adam and Ham, who I said created the world and the ark, that's the beginning. Then Moses and Joshua reformed Egypt and Canaan. That's 12 tribes, 4 major judges. Well, when I was looking into the judges, I sat back and paid attention. Now, each of these guys, Elijah and the prophets have 4 horsemen, and John and the apostles have 4 gospels. So I went to go look at it further. And then I paid attention to something. I think the 2 corrupt sons that were the judges of Samuel were Samson and Jephthah. Shem and Japheth. That's what that transliterates to. And if you don't, Semitic and European peoples. And if you don't believe me, I'm going to show you something real quick. Samuel is an important figure in the Bible who served as a priest and became the first prophet and the last judge. The name Samuel derives its meanings from 2 Hebrew words, Shem and El, the god of Shem. I told you somebody in the Semitic culture mixed into this and created 2 sons after that, Shem and Japheth. They took the garment of Ham. Now, if Egypt and all them was doing all this, and then all of a sudden the Semitic people have it after Joshua and the judges, that means Samuel was the one that went back to Aaron's kingdom and started making men and prophets rule over people. So, before you will hear me say, you have Noah, who's the dragon, who really, if you pay attention, Noah is mean Narmer, Cain the farmer, and if you take Narmer and Cain and transliterate that, you get Nimrod. If you take the words out of that, I'm telling you. Then after mean Narmer spread through Babylon and Assyria and all these places and built a land to the east, Canaan, then what ends up happening is you have all these people in Nimrod in the Tower of Nimrod in Babylon. Well, then after all those Babylonians and Assyrians go down to the Indus Valley, remember the Aryans invaded the Indus Valley, then you will have Brahma appear and Brahmaham going throughout the world. Well, then, remember I said later on down the line in the 1900s BC, you have the Hyksos invade Egypt, and then 400 years later, Ahmose comes. Well, the reason why Samuel's important is because first, you have Noah the dragon, you have Aaron who took Moses' garment, so you have Ahmose, and 3 Moses after him. Those men took the garments and made pharaohs gods, because there was no pharaohs before the Hyksos invasion or before Moses or any of this. They were kings. Well, you go later down the line, Akhenaten or Joshua had to reform Canaan and Egypt. He reformed all that stuff. Well, after that happens, he sets judges up. And then there's a man who then sets up kings. Samuel, who was the first prophet in Israel. Israel, the Semitic people who I keep talking about, the Hyksos. Samuel is an important figure in the Bible who served as a priest. He was an important figure in the Bible who became the first prophet and the last judge. So he ended the rule of the judges who was reforming the land. And then he started kings. His 2 sons, Samson, look at these prophets and the name of these prophets real quick. I'm going to show you guys something. If you take Samson, which has Samuel's name in it, and then Jephthah, which is really Japheth, that's Shem and Japheth. The 2 new kings that eventually through spirit went out to rule the world. You see what I'm saying? And then later on, later down the line, you have Fantasies and Amenemop and Akhenaten and all these different people. I'm telling y'all. So first Aaron did all this stuff in Egypt. Then Samuel messed up and did all this stuff in the Middle East. Then you go later further down the line, you have 2 more men after these 4 kings, because you have Samuel. Then you have, so if Samuel is An Harumhub after Akhenaten, then you have Tutumakin, Saul, one of the kings. You have Ramses, who turned into a Goliath. Then you have Senesis and Solomon, who both messed up also, Senesis and Amenemop. And then those are like the 4 legs on the beast. Then you have Peter and Paul, who come out later when John tries to testify, and Peter and Paul destroy everything. So if I'm going to talk about Samuel, I'm going to get a little bit more into Peter and Paul real So when I talk about Peter and Paul, I'm going to do something very, 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 very technical right now. Okay, so you go down here to Peter and Paul. Peter is the first Judas. So if John the Baptist came to do something, Yehohanan, then look at Josephus, the first pope. He betrayed Yehuda. He gave the Romans a Greek version of the word. Look the stuff up if you want. He was replaced by Matthew. Now, pay attention. All of this stuff happened before we came here. So the whole Bible was wrote before we got here, the 4 Gospels and all that. He and Paul left the city walls from the prostitute's house in Joshua, and don't have the red wine or scarlet ribbon in the Gospels. When Rome was about to take his camp, he made a suicide pact. So when Rome was coming to get Josephus and all them, he made a suicide pact with a bunch of other people in his tribe. He didn't fulfill it while the rest did, and then became a major man in Rome. Peter, Josephus, took John's garment and did what Aaron did to Moses. Vespasian and Titus then got John's garment and named it Yehosus, turning himself into a god. Paul didn't even know Yehohanan and had a vision. He was a persecutor of the covenant and taught all of Greece, Asia, and Rome. Paul is symbolic for the Greek Pharisees who was attacking Jesus and his people, if that makes sense. Are you seeing what I'm saying? So the people coming up saying, who are you? Are you Elijah? You're not the law of Aaron and all this other stuff. So then Paul didn't even know Yehohanan and had a vision. He was a persecutor of the covenant and taught all of Greece, Asia, and Rome. Paul is symbolic of the Pharisees, and the Peter is symbolic for Judas, who betrayed his tribe, aka Josephus, who changed his name once he became a citizen of Rome. He gave Titus and Vespasian / Barnabas, hey, what's up? Because Barnabas is a Greek god. If you pay attention to Vespasian's words, he made himself a god after meeting John. And so did Titus, and he destroyed the temple. He rent the temple. And the name gave Titus and Vespasian the word and the name uncircumcised and taught his wisdom. Paul got it from Peter, the Pope, through the Spirit, and had an argument that led to 2 horns: Catholicism, Rome, and Protestantism, Greek theology, or the Theos, resurrected by Martin Luther, aka Paul. So if you pay attention, Josephus is Peter that started the Pope's empire, and later down the line, Martin Luther is Paul. Because if you pay attention to what Martin Luther did, he was the one that, after William Tyndale wrote the Bible and got killed, so William Tyndale would be Matthew. William Tyndale wrote the Bible and was fighting the Pope. Then he got killed, and Martin Luther took it and did a whole bunch of German foolishness, resurrected the Theos, and then created a whole bunch of racism and stuff, and created a new religion, Protestantism. So if you pay attention to that, Martin Luther and Peter, Paul and Peter got into a fight, and then Martin Luther wrote a whole bunch of theses and laws and spread it throughout the world. It's a battle through the spirits. And Matthew, who was the one that replaced Peter or the Pope, because he then translated it in English righteously and was teaching people to follow the Spirit, was murdered. He bared his cross. So Andrew is Yehohanan, if that makes sense. And the 4 men, when the word was walking and they saw James and John and Peter and another man, the 4, those are the 4 Gospels, but Peter was replaced by William Tyndale or Matthias. And then Paul, who is another Judas, the second Judas, came and spread Protestantism all throughout the world. He perpetuated the Pope's pagan god, Jesus the Christ, because if you read William Tyndale's writings, he hated the Pope, and he didn't teach nothing about no Jesus or pagan gods. He taught the Spirit is the Most High and it leads us. He perpetuated the Pope's pagan god, Jesus Christ, and sent German Bibles all over the land. So then now once people are being led by the Pope or Peter, now Paul is getting people to come in through the name, I am who I am, because he put it in these Bibles. And then he started teaching all this stuff, if that makes sense. If you listen to some of the stuff Martin taught, he rebuked the poor, hated blacks, Jews, and gays. He only loved princes and took money from princes and fought the poor people in a revolt. William Tyndale was totally opposite. So William Tyndale had to fight the Pope, Rome, and now look how Martin Luther King comes into play and how the same name can come back and destroy darkness. Paul or Martin Luther perpetuated the Pope's pagan god, Jesus the Christ, and sent German Bibles all over the land, writing letters to someone converting them to Protestantism, which led to many massive wars and the 30 Years' War. So after the Ottomans got done defeating the Pope and the Pope rose again, Then the Protestants got involved and started a whole bloody religion and war, the Dark Middle Ages. That's why when I say when you guys make fun of Muhammad, you guys have no idea about history. And if it wasn't for him, you guys might be dead or slaves somewhere. Men after him created an oppressive caliphate. Matthew was the true disciple, aka William Tyndale, who replaced Peter and and Martin Luther King Jr. replaced Paul, the second horn or the second Judas. If you read Peter, he's telling you he took John's words, right? The Pope, or Titus and Vespasian. And then Barnabas and Titus, he even has letters to him. And then if you read Paul, he crucifies your spirit. If we're all the Christ, and who I am is the Christ, and I am the bigger one is the living God, then if he's teaching to crucify the spirit, he's the one teaching to crucify people's wisdom and destroy it. He's teaching, I didn't teach of the wisdom, and I didn't teach of this and that, and I didn't teach of, I taught of being destroyed and subservient and being crucified by the cross, and I was a murderer and a persecutor, but now I'm the living word. It's Martin Luther. And MLK Jr. replaced Paul because Martin Luther King Jr. had to fight all these Nazis and German psychopaths who perpetuated all this racism and Aryanism from all the way from the Assyrians. Go look up where the Nazi hoods come from, and if it don't come from Rome, Spain and Rome. The Catholics and the Protestants, who alongside with Judaism, the second Peter the first horn, Paul the second, Josephus and Martin Luther the Protestant, who was replaced by Matthias or William Tyndale or Matthew, and Martin Luther King Jr., the Word and the Spirit. The Catholics and the Protestants, who alongside with Judaism, Babylon, and Persia, Islam, have spread war and murder over 3,000 years, and Babylon and Egypt for 6,000 years now, creating the eighth beast, all the passengers from the ark combined into a beast after 600 years, Noah's flood, or 6,000 years of mean armor and Cain, making the feet of the statue iron and clay. The beast, Hashem, Allah, God's pagan God, Jesus Christ, Yeshua, Isa, the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, and Jesus Christ, making the Word and Spirit hungered after 40 days, 4,000 years since Ham, and was enslaved since 2000 BC. The end of the 40 days or 4,000 years of Cain's flood. So, I want to show you guys something even further, something interesting real quick. If you pay attention to Atum, which is the first god, that's like Adam, transliterated. Atum, Adam. Well, then you go even further from the Ethiopia and the language of Ge'ez, from Ethiopia, the Congo, traveling the Nile. Hieroglyphics, Atum, Atam, Adam. Then mean Narmer spread Mat through the world. Mayat is a transliteration of Atum, which was the first god, but he did it through war and oppression. Well, then if you look at Ham, Mentuhotep, or Hemten, his wife's name was Kimsit, or Kemet, or Hemetic. And if you pay attention to his bio, he reformed Egypt and did it in a loving, friendly way. So Noah is the dragon, Aaron is the beast, the Tutmos, the three Tutmoses and Mentuhotep, and then Samuel and Harumhub, which are A and Harumhub, which are like the Samuels. What they end up doing is those guys end up creating new kings and creating kings and savages and stuff. If you ask Israel where they know about Israel and kings, they'll tell you from Isirar, from Egypt. It was the people without a king. What was created later on, and then Egypt became corrupt again. So I'm just trying to spread information. This thing called the time lapse here, I'm going to post this if I can. This thing called the Word here, I'm going to post this on my page and my community tabs. But I'm telling you all, Samson, even if you read Samson and Japheth or something, which is Shem and Japheth, a representation of them and their father who created false prophets. If you pay attention to their good stories, you can learn from them. Samson gives me a lot of strength at certain times. But if you pay attention to those stories for real, it's basically saying they went too far, they got bloody violent, and destroyed the covenant. So you got the four righteous judges at first. I think it's like Othniel, Deborah, Ehud, and Gideon. And then you have the four horsemen whose words were played with Nebuchadnezzar and the kings. And then you have the four Gospels, which was played with by Peter and Paul, Josephus, and Martin Luther, the Protestant. And so Matthew, William Tyndale, and Martin Luther King became the Word and Spirit. So I hope that's edifying. I'm warning you all who play with this book. I'm giving a roadmap, and I'm trying to heal the spirit to the best of my ability. Oh, something else I want to talk about here in the time-lapse one. So you basically have, you have, give me a moment, it takes me time to find this stuff. Okay, so you have Adam and Ham, then you have Moses and Joshua, then you have Elijah, Muhammad, and Juan and John. The eight archangels who stand before the throne of all mankind are here to defeat mean armor, aka Noah, Nimrod, Brahmasmi, Isis, Rael, Aaron, Samuel, Peter, and Paul, and their 8 bodies combined to create the Babylonian, Persian, Greek, Roman, pagan god from their father Egypt and Canaan when it became corrupt. Jesus Christ, masquerading as Noah, the Nephilim that rules over all flesh, walking off of Cain's ark, the men that were created in his flood, the Bible, after the ended a lot of time. So I'm here for the 8th beast, the king that is the 7th, that will be the 8th, that walks for a short time. And I'm here to end its Roman, German, English, Greece buffoonery and all the other buffoonery that hurts people and enslaves them. So I love you all and stay blessed.